Have you ever been hurt so deeply that you quietly made a promise to yourself, no one and nothing will ever hurt me like that again? You didn't announce it, you didn't rage, you just started pulling back, setting boundaries, wearing masks, and telling yourself, I have to be stronger now. You tried being cold, you tried not caring, you told yourself you were moving on, but here's the truth. You haven't admitted yet. It's not the betrayal that hurt the most. It's not the rejection. It's not the silence. It's the fact that you didn't know what to do with the pain. You didn't know how to process it. So you buried it. And that's what's been hurting you ever since. You think you need more walls, but what you really need is inner discipline. The ability to feel everything and still choose your response. The strength to look at the wound and not flinch. The self-control to stop letting other people's behavior decide your emotional state. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In this video, you're going to learn something most people never do: how to become someone that nothing and nobody can hurt again. Not because you hide, not because you shut down, but because you've trained your mind to become unshakable. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. What's something that's been getting under your skin lately? Drop it in the comments. Maybe, just maybe, your story will be the one that helps another man feel less alone. Where the real pain comes from. Let's be honest. Most people believe that the pain they feel comes from what others did or didn't do, that one betrayal, that rejection you didn't see coming, the silence after you gave someone your trust. But here's the brutal truth. It's not the event that breaks you. It's what it touches inside you. What hurts isn't just what happened. What hurts is the story your mind attaches to it. It's the echo of old wounds that never healed. It's the subconscious script that says, "See, you're still not enough. You're still unworthy. You're still not safe." The Stoics understood this before modern psychology had a name for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, you don't suffer because someone hurt you. You suffer because they touched a place that was already bleeding. And until you address that place, you'll keep trying to control the world around you. You'll try to be good enough, strong enough, smart enough, thinking that if you just do everything right, people won't hurt you again. But here's the trap. That kind of control is an illusion, and the more you cling to it, the more you suffer. Because deep down, you're still afraid. Afraid of being abandoned, afraid of being overlooked, afraid of being exposed as not enough. So you build masks, you create polished versions of yourself, you aim for perfection, but inside you're still tense, still bracing for the next emotional blow. And that constant tension? It's a prison. One where you're always watching, always calculating, always performing. You can't relax, you can't trust, and worst of all, you can't connect. The Stoics never promised a life without pain. They promised something greater, a mind so disciplined that pain no longer owns you. Your real power starts the moment you stop demanding the world to change and start training yourself to meet it with clarity, calm, and conscious control. Because the truth is this: you don't need life to be easier. You need to become stronger, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that strength isn't found in avoidance. It's built in the fire of self-mastery. Let's move into that fire together. Why your need to protect yourself is keeping you weak. Here's the truth most people never want to hear. Your obsession with control is the very thing that's making you fragile. You try to manage everything: how people see you, how they respond, how they talk about you, how they love you, or don't. You analyze every word. You replay conversations in your head. You walk on eggshells, hoping to avoid rejection, yet aching for connection. And the more you try to control how the world treats you, the more power you unknowingly hand over, because the world doesn't follow your rules. People don't act the way you expect, and pain doesn't show up on a schedule. You tell yourself, if I'm just careful enough, strong enough, successful enough, no one will be able to hurt me again. But what you're actually doing is building a prison of tension and hypervigilance. The Stoics saw this illusion for what it truly is. Epictetus warned, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Yet most of us chase the exact opposite. We don't seek freedom, we seek guarantees. We want to guarantee we won't be left again. Guarantee that we'll always be respected. Guarantee that no one will ever disappoint us again. But that's not how the world works. And the harder you cling to those guarantees, the more easily you're broken when life doesn't comply. Control doesn't make you stronger. It makes you more anxious, more reactive, more drained. True power isn't about bending the world to your will. It's about becoming someone who remains centered no matter what the world throws at you. Someone who doesn't need approval to feel confident, who doesn't need others to behave perfectly to stay calm, who doesn't collapse when things go off script. You become that person not by closing off, but by building within, by strengthening your inner system so that chaos outside doesn't become chaos inside. That's where Stoic self-discipline comes in, because the only control that actually liberates you is control over your own perceptions, emotions, and actions. And ironically, when you stop trying to control everything, you gain the one thing you've been chasing all along: peace. Not the fake kind that depends on quiet surroundings. The real kind, the kind that exists even in the middle of emotional storms. So if you've been living with clenched fists, trying to hold everything together, maybe it's time to loosen your grip, because nothing and nobody can hurt you anymore, when they no longer have access to the parts of you that used to be desperate for their validation. And that's the shift we're about to make next. Let's step into what real emotional strength looks like. How self-control becomes your shield. No one tells you this, but the people who seem the calmest are often the ones who face the most chaos. They didn't escape the storm. They learned to stand still in the middle of it. And that kind of stillness, that kind of presence, isn't natural, it's trained. Self-discipline isn't about being cold. It's not about denying emotion or not caring. That's not strength, that's numbing. Real strength comes when you can feel everything and still choose your response. That's the discipline we're talking about. The discipline to not react to every insult, to not chase every apology, to not need every misunderstanding to be resolved. Because let's be honest, most of what you're reacting to doesn't even deserve your energy. You get angry, not because of what someone said, but because it hit something raw inside you. You spiral, not because of the event, but because you never built the mental habits to stop yourself from spiraling. And this is where most men fall apart. They've trained for external things, career, fitness, finances, but they never trained for the one battlefield that decides everything, the mind. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He didn't say to become heartless. He said to become aware, and from that awareness, build control. When you train your mind, you stop needing the world to treat you a certain way in order for you to feel peace. You stop depending on someone else's behavior to validate your worth or sanity. You stop being a puppet of your own emotions and start becoming the master of them. That doesn't mean you won't feel pain, but it means you'll stop giving pain the power to define you. Pain will come, but it won't stay, because your identity will no longer be tied to the wound. That's the power of a disciplined mind. It acts as a shield, not to block out life, but to filter it, to know what matters and what's just noise, to know which battles are worth fighting and which ones should be met with silence. Self-discipline is freedom, because it lets you respond with intention instead of reacting from emotion. And let's be clear, this doesn't happen by accident. It happens by training. Just like you train your body, you train your thoughts, you train your attention, you train the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. You start catching the spiral earlier. You start hearing your triggers more clearly. You start choosing stillness over outburst. And that's when you become dangerous, not in an aggressive way, but in a centered way. Because when nothing outside you controls what happens inside you, you become a fortress, not a prison, but a sanctuary. That's why the disciplined mind isn't just a tool. It's your first layer of real protection in a chaotic world. Because the goal isn't to stop feeling. The goal is to stop bleeding from the same emotional wounds over and over again. And that begins when you build the mental muscle to sit with discomfort without losing yourself in it. That's what we're doing now. Brick by brick. You're becoming unshakable. And in the next section, we'll see exactly what that transformation looks like when self-mastery becomes your new identity. Let's continue, mastering the storm within. A story of emotional discipline. Let me introduce you to Daniel Cross. He's 49, divorced, father of 2, and the founder of a mid-sized residential construction company based in Austin, Texas. Specializing in family homes and remodeling projects, he built it with his bare hands, quite literally, started with 1 truck, 1 crew, and a vision. Today, 10 crews, 40 employees, contracts lined up for months. From the outside, Daniel looked solid, tough, experienced, sharp, the kind of man who could handle pressure, deadlines, and demanding clients. But what no one saw was how easily rattled he was under the surface. One snide email from a client. He wouldn't sleep for 3 nights. One passive-aggressive comment from his ex-wife. It would echo in his mind for weeks. One employee showing up late. He'd snap, overreact, then regret it in silence. Daniel wasn't weak, but he was undisciplined inside. His emotions controlled him more than he'd admit. He was tired of being angry, tired of overanalyzing conversations, tired of feeling like a grown man who could build homes, but couldn't hold his own mind together. Until one day, something broke, not at work, at home. His teenage son, Ryan, came to visit for the weekend. They were sitting at the kitchen table when Daniel started complaining, again about a subcontractor who missed a deadline. And Ryan just said it flatly, "Dad, it's always someone else's fault with you. You get mad at everything." That line hit him harder than any business loss ever had, because it wasn't said with hate. It was said with truth. That night, Daniel didn't sleep, but not because of anger. He went looking, found a podcast on Stoicism, then a book. Then he started journaling every morning at 5 a.m., 10 minutes of silence before the day began. And slowly, painfully, he stopped reacting. He stopped needing clients to talk to him a certain way to feel competent. He stopped depending on perfect behavior from his crew to stay calm. He stopped bleeding over every mistake like it was personal. Daniel didn't become cold. He became clear. He didn't stop caring. He just stopped obsessing. And that shift, that self-mastery, didn't just change his business. It changed his life. His son started visiting more. His crew became more loyal. And inside, he wasn't fighting himself every day anymore. That's what inner strength really is. Not the absence of feeling, but the ability to choose your response, no matter the pressure. Daniel Cross didn't eliminate stress. He built a mind that wasn't threatened by it. And that's what you're building too. Not armor, not walls, but a foundation, stable, centered, and fully your own. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how to build that foundation for yourself. Let's get to work. How to build an untouchable mindset. So by now you understand something deep. You can't control the world. You can't stop people from disappointing you, disrespecting you, or misunderstanding you. But what you can do is build a mind so solid, so anchored, so self-led, that nothing outside of you has the power to dismantle you ever again. This is what we mean by being untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because your inner discipline has become your shield. So the question becomes, how do you actually build that kind of mind? How do you move from being reactive to unshakable? Let's break it down into a framework you can actually use. No fluff, no vague inspiration, just 3 battle-tested practices. Step 1, emotional audit. Catch the pattern. Don't chase the trigger. You have been triggered. Now what? Most people live in what we call reaction mode. Something happens, they feel something, they react automatically. Someone sends a passive-aggressive text, they get defensive or silent or over-explain. A partner criticizes them during a hard day, they lash out or shut down. But what if you could pause the loop, right in the middle? That's what the emotional audit is for. It's the practice of catching yourself in the moment, noticing the emotion rise, and instead of responding right away, you ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling right now? Where have I felt this before? Is this about the situation or something older inside me? This is where you begin to train awareness over reactivity. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. In Meditations, he wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." Daniel Cross, the contractor we mentioned earlier, started doing this every time something made his blood boil on a job site. Instead of barking orders, he'd take 30 seconds to name the emotion, usually frustration from feeling unheard. That clarity alone stopped him from sabotaging relationships that took years to build. Action. Tip: at least once per day, pause mid-frustration and write down the real emotion behind it. Not just, "I'm angry," but "I felt dismissed again. I hate feeling invisible." Once named, it loses power. Step 2, radical clarity. Journal the narrative, then challenge it. Here's the painful truth. Most of your emotional pain doesn't come from the event. It comes from the story your mind attaches to it. You get left on red, and the story becomes, "They don't respect me. I'm always overlooked." You don't get invited to something, and the story becomes, "I'm irrelevant. I never belong." This is where the Stoic discipline of interpretation comes into play. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That's not just a quote, it's an operating principle. And to change that internal operating system, you need a tool for rewriting the narrative. That tool is journaling. Not surface-level Dear Diary fluff, but strategic self-inquiry. Here's the method. Write down what happened. Just the facts. Strip out all drama. Write down what you felt. Be raw. No editing, just honesty. Write the automatic story your brain created. "They're trying to push me out. I'm failing," etc. Challenge that story with facts, perspective, and Stoic logic. Ask, "Is this true?" Ask, "Even if it is, does it have to define me?" By doing this, you begin separating reality from projection. And the more you do it, the more you become the author of your mental state, not a slave to it. Daniel made this a habit. 5 minutes every morning before coffee. No phone, just pen and paper. He called it his mental alignment check, and it shifted everything. Action tip: use this 4-step journal model for 7 straight days, then reread all entries. You'll be stunned by how many of your emotional spirals were built on assumptions, not facts. Step 3, value-based action. Lead from principles, not emotion. Now we get to the final and most transformational step. You've caught the emotion. You've clarified the story, but now you have to choose your response, and this is where most people relapse. Because they know better, but they don't do better. Why? Because they don't have an anchor. Something deeper than the emotion, something to act from, not just react to. This is where value-based action comes in. The Stoics didn't just believe in self-awareness. They believed in virtuous behavior regardless of external conditions. In other words, do the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Epictetus put it best. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Here's how you apply that. Define your top 3 values. For example, integrity, presence, patience. When emotion surges, ask, what would a man of integrity do here? What would patience look like in this moment? Take one small action that reflects that value, not your feeling. That might mean taking a breath instead of firing off a reply, saying thank you when someone challenges you, pausing for 24 hours before making a decision under pressure. Daniel's go-to line was simple. What would the calm version of me do here? And by practicing that question day after day, he became the calm version of himself, not by accident, but by alignment. Action. Tip: print your values. Keep them on your desk or dashboard. When stress hits, don't act from how you feel, act from who you are. Final thought. These 3 steps aren't motivational fluff. They are a system, and systems are what separate chaos from clarity, emotion from effectiveness, boys from men. You don't need to be numb to pain. You just need to build a mind that doesn't collapse when pain knocks on the door. Because when you've trained yourself to pause, to reframe, and to act from principle, nothing and nobody can own you again. And that, right there, is how you become truly untouchable. Let's bring it home in the final chapter. The Stoic rebirth. You're not just unshakable, you're rebuilt. You didn't watch this because you needed motivation. You came because something inside you was done pretending, done reacting, done bleeding in silence. And now, a shift has begun. You're not numb, you're aware. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not unreachable, you're just unshakable. This is no longer about survival. It's about sovereignty, emotional, mental, spiritual. That version of you who needed validation? Gone. Now you're led by discipline, not desire, by values, not volatility. And that is rare, because while others try to control the world, you've mastered yourself. So let me ask you directly, what part of your life did you use to lose control over? And how are you reclaiming it today? Drop it in the comments. Your story might be the one another man needs to read, to keep going. And if this message hit home, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone still fighting silently. We don't chase attention here. We earn respect in silence. This is Daily Stoic Fuel, where inner power gets rebuilt. One lesson at a time. Let's keep building.